The ballot language is meant to just be a general description of the activities the city is proposing to undertake. We're limited to 200 words in those propositions, and so you kind of have to boil down a lot of information into a few words. And so what you see in the ballot language is a reference to the constitutional provision under which this debt would be authorized for the stormwater bond. And asking the voters to approve that authorization as set forth more clearly in the accompanying ordinance. The ordinance goes through and it contains the ballot language, but it also sets out all of the projects that will be done with the money raised by this bond authorization. It also says that any funds that aren't needed for those projects, we get them all done and they're under budget, we still have to spend those excess funds on stormwater projects. The process to come up with the ordinance language was based on an extensive vetting process with council for the transportation bond projects, and then through our Stormwater Citizen Committee for the stormwater bond proposition. On a transportation bond, it's being authorized under a different section of the Oklahoma Constitution, and we are required to list those specific projects in that ordinance. And so that's what we did, and that was the vetting process we went through, you know, kind of determining which projects would be included and which wouldn't be, essentially of all the longer term projects that we need done. For stormwater, we're not required to list projects in the ordinance by the statute that authorizes these kind of bond funds, but we wanted to do that anyway because we know that our voters are accustomed to having that information, and we wanted to be able to assure them exactly what that money would be spent on. The proposed stormwater bond is authorized by one particular provision in the Oklahoma Constitution, and there's also statutory authorizations that go along with that. Those statutory authorizations are broad and allow you to use that section of the statutes to ask your voters to approve bonds for a wide variety of projects. Recreational facilities, senior centers, stormwater projects is one of the things you can do with that section of the statutes. What we've chosen to do here is use that section for stormwater projects, and to make sure that that is all we're doing with those funds we're asking the voters to authorize, we have included language in the ordinance we're asking voters to approve that says that explicitly, that these funds will only be used for stormwater projects. And it actually lists the projects as well, and then says any excess funds not needed for those projects also has to be spent on stormwater projects. So this is solely a stormwater project initiative. In the list of projects, we've included a project on Rock Creek Road between Pendleton and Interstate Drive that's addressing some stormwater needs on the west side of I-35, east of Pendleton Drive, and west of the service road. And so that's what that's designed for. It's a little over $500,000. It's not designed for any project in University North Park, and it's certainly not designed for an arena project in which a lot more than $500,000 was being requested as part of a tax increment financing district. Just keep in mind the ballot's supposed to be 200 words long or less to make it easier to read and easier to vote on. If you want the full information, it's all out there on visionfornorman.com. You can read the entire ordinance and see every project that we are telling our voters we are going to do with these funds. And you can see the language that limits, even if we have extra money, that it's limited to stormwater funds. And that's really important to keep in mind, so you know what these funds are going to be spent on. There is no question.